The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Welcome to the program, as he is Caleb Calhoun. I am Dave Hooker, as we've got a day full of Johns. What about that? That's pretty cool. John Wilkerson will join us. John Adams will join us as well. So please hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that, as we've got a big time show lined up, as John Wilkerson live from Omaha. That is pretty cool, I think, Caleb Calhoun. And we'll get into the discussion of, does Tennessee win it all? And John Adams has followed this program very closely, and I think you're going to find that he likes Tennessee's chances. What do you make of Tennessee's chances now that they're 2-0 before we bring John in here?
Oh, I think they got a great chance. Before we get started, though, I just want to send congratulations to you as a Celtics fan for them winning in 5. Jason Tatum really tried.
I don't crow, but I was hoping you would say something.
I'm going to go to hell for saying this, but Jason Tatum really tried to honor Kobe by being the leading scorer while shooting like complete crap the whole series.
You know, Tatum, to me, that whole team is just a bunch of pretty good dudes. There's not a Kobe. There's not a superstar. It's a bunch of good dudes. And I think the NBA needs a Victor Wembanyama right now to take over, because I don't know that there's a takeover guy in the NBA with LeBron getting older.
Ja Morant, baby, with all his gun charges.
Oh, yeah. He's got a quick trigger. John Adams joins us now. John, brought to you by Neubert Collision Center. Joe Neubert Collision Centers will take care of you. John, how are you, sir?
Doing well, Dave. Congratulations on your son, Caleb. I hope things are going well at the household.
Thank you, John. Yes, things are going well so far. He's 2 weeks old today, believe it or not. So he's
Wait till you get to 21 and 19 years old. That's a little bit crazy. Hit that like and subscribe button if you like Caleb's son's name. And John, I haven't gotten your thoughts on it yet, but it's Quincy, after John Quincy Adams, which I think is, and I'm not saying this because I like Caleb and we work together, but I think that's one of the darn coolest names I've ever heard.
It is a cool name, and you don't hear it that often either.
Yeah.
And you can spell it. I think most people can spell it. That's important.
Covering recruiting, I can tell you right now that that is something to hold to value, because I've written some weird names, John, that I'm sure the spell checker at the News Sentinel caught back in the day.
Yeah, I know a lady who spells her name. I mean, it's not her fault. Her parents gave her the name Brandy. You spell Brandy, Brandy. Occasionally, you may get a Brandi. She's Brand. She's Brandee.
Strange. Caleb, I had someone when I was checking into the gym yesterday that said, I was looking over the corner, they were checking me in, typed in DAV and said, is there an E? It's time for today's tough question.
Today's tough question.
Oh, no. And there's not an A either.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
It's a true story. Talking to John Adams yesterday, I said, John, should I spell my name with an E? He said, well, let's talk about the baseball balls instead. I said, okay, that sounds like a good idea, because I know how to spell my name. John, in his usual deadpan way, says, well, yeah, I think they'll win it all. John, you think at 2-0, Tennessee is going to win a national championship in baseball. And I think that speaks volumes because of your objectivity, which some would view as negativity over the years. but you really like this program. And now that they're 2-0, you see them bringing home a national title. That's pretty incredible. I'm impressed.
Well, I think it's going into the tournament. I thought Tennessee had a really good chance. I thought it was perhaps the most complete team. It doesn't have a dominant starting pitcher, but everything else is pretty well together. And Tennessee, when you think about it, you go back to the historic win over Florida State with that tremendous comeback rally. Didn't play anywhere near its best ball. In fact, it played one of the worst games it could have played for the first half of the game and still won. It's just this team has got a really, really deep lineup. The stats reflect that. And it's got a lot of different kinds of pitchers that Tony Vitello and the pitching coach Frank Anderson have worked with very well and have got them in the right situations to help them do their best.
Yeah, John, do you think there's a psychological aspect to it also? Dave and I were talking yesterday, and, this is the first time since 1951 that Tennessee's won multiple College World Series games. I mean, dating back to the Rod Delmonico days, it seems like every time they went to the College World Series, they flamed out like they were the men's basketball team in the SEC tournament. And then it seemed like they were trying to do it again with Florida State on Friday. So do you think getting past Florida State cleared a mental hurdle that maybe has plagued anybody that's played for Tennessee baseball over the past 30 years?
Well, Tennessee fans refer to a curse that seems to extend to all sports because they're not accustomed to Tennessee winning the game or winning the championship. But I think with the players, I mean, I always wonder about that because players weren't part of that history. Now they hear about it, so that might affect them. And I think what affects teams going into a World Series when you're the number one team, that was the case 2 years ago. There's a lot more pressure on you. You're expected to win, particularly the team 2 years ago when it had such an incredible season, went 57-9 overall. So, yeah, there are high expectations. But I just think the nature of baseball, when you talk about seeding, when a number one pitcher is going for you, you may be the 8th seed overall, but when you've got the number one pitcher and he's pitching, you're not the 8th seed. Pitching has such a factor in this sport, and it's such a variable. You don't know from one outing to the next how things might go. But yeah, I guess that was a big. Maybe you could. That was certainly a relief, but this team is just. You saw it in the North Carolina game. It's a really good team overall and not any really glaring shortcomings.
I'm going to throw the poll question out there, then Caleb jump in here. The poll question, it's going to be on YouTube in about 5 seconds, is do you now expect the Vols to win the College World Series now that they're 2-0? Caleb?
Yes, I do. And I think it's because of the mental hurdle that I talked about. It reminds me of sometimes in football or in other sports when you get over one. We talked about, I've said, like in 98 when Tennessee got past Florida in 98, I think they felt that at that point they could win, that they were meant to win any game they played. And I feel like winning that first College World Series game was just like that on Friday.
John, it's funny that Caleb brings that up because it's on Off the Hook Sports right now. Again, you can vote on that poll question. It's pretty simple. Do you now expect the Vols to win the College World Series now that they're 2-0? Yes, mental hurdle gone, gets 100% of the vote. No, still too tough. Doesn't get a vote yet, but it may. We shall see. But John, when I look at this team, I'm curious to ask you what deficiencies could rear their head and make your prediction for not.
Well, I think pitching, again, that's such a variable. And you go back to the Florida State game. Florida State's got a really good hitting team. Texas A&M does, even though it lost its best player to injury, and he's out for this College World Series. You go back to that Florida State game. They were teeing off on A.J. Causey, who's probably been Tennessee's most consistent pitcher. So I think and they hit Tennessee's relief corps too, and that's been a strength of the team. So I think a team that can really hit, you could have that happen. And also, Tennessee's defense was dreadful in that game against Florida State. Sometimes three errors, but there really were more fielding lapses in those three errors accounted for. Kind of just kicking the ball around inexplicably. Overall, the season, it was a good defensive team. But I just think pitching is such a variable. And even though Tennessee may be favored to win, you just don't know what could happen in that area.
Is this a sport, guys, where Kevin, I'm sorry to jump in again, but is this a sport where it's toughest to deem the best team as the national champion? I feel like when Georgia and Alabama won the national championship, or going back to Miami in football, those were the best teams. John, I don't know that we necessarily find the best team every year in baseball. Thoughts?
No, I don't think we do in basketball either. I mean, NCAA tournament, the more playoff games you have, I think the less chance of the best team winning. There are just too many things that can go wrong, most notably injuries. So I think you'll see that when college football goes to an expanded playoff, going from 4 to 12 teams. I think the best team winning is consistently is less likely. I mean, I look back in last year, I still think Georgia was the best team. Didn't win the national championship, lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game when both Brock Bowers, its best player, excuse me, and Ladd McConkey, its best wide receiver, were less than 100% in that game. So I just think you'll see that in football too, and definitely in baseball. I mean, we see it. Florida still in the running for a national title. Florida did not have a great year. Talented team, kind of like Ole Miss in 2022. Expected to be really good, wasn't really good, but then came on strong at the end, and Ole Miss won the national title in 22 in baseball.
More reasons why Tennessee wins the national title and wins the College World Series. And, it's not homerish here. We're giving you real info. And John has predicted Tennessee to win the national championship in baseball. So has Caleb. I'm not there yet, but I'm pretty close. John's appearance is brought to you by our good friends at Neubert Collision Center.
45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
So, John, I'm with you on that, and with how it's tough to crown a champion. And isn't baseball even worse? Just because baseball, there's so much more randomness that determines an outcome of a baseball game than I feel like any other sport you play. I mean, you see this with Major League Baseball all the time. I mean, people call the Braves choke artists for winning 15 straight division titles and flaming out in the postseason. But I mean, isn't like 90% of the postseason luck in baseball, in both college and pro?
Well, I don't know that it's luck. I just think you could call it that. There's just so many things that can go wrong. And they always say baseball is a game of inches. Well, go back to the Tennessee win over Florida State. Check swing on Blake Burke. Umpires ruled in his favor that he didn't break the plane, so it's not strike three. Could have just as easily gone the other way. It was one of those 50-50 calls. And then the great comeback never happens. But there's so many plays like that in baseball. You're right. It just so many plays, great catches, great throws. Go back, just the nature of the sport. When you hit you can get a couple of hits on balls that barely make it out of the infield, and then you can hit a ball as hard as any human could hit it, and it goes right into somebody's glove. So the nature of the sport makes it unpredictable, but also it creates so much tension. I mean, there's nothing like the tension in baseball. No other sport can match that. When you've got a bases loaded, 3-2 count on the hitter, the game hanging in the balance, and that pitcher's winding up to throw. I mean, there are a lot of people who can't even watch. I mean,
My wife said these words. What a game. John, I've known her for 31 years. I don't know that she said that before. And you know what I do for a living, so she's been around it. But she was like, what a game. I was like, whoa, who is this person in my house?
Well, you're right, though. I mean, it builds up that drama and tension like no other sport can do because there's no clock. So ostensibly, you always have a chance. You don't have to worry about the clock running out on you. You can run out of outs, but not the clock. So it creates a different environment.
John, I want you to check out the new apparel here, thanks to Apex Apparel Group Design. I got a new Off the Hook sports gear, and I'm very happy with it. Couldn't be happier, as a matter of fact. And when it comes to Apex Apparel, just call Tyler at 865-919-3001 for your business. I know that you can go online and get a lot of promotional materials done for you, but the simple fact is you're going to have to do a lot of the legwork, and the quality might not be what you want. Well, if you call Tyler, it's all in-house, and he can do it for you. 865-919-3001. I'm a big fan. So for your business, I encourage you, give Tyler a shot. You'll get 15% off your first order because I'm looking pretty snazzy right now. John's appearance brought to you by Neubert Collision Center. John, Tony Vitello, where does he rank among UT's coaches? Now, he doesn't have a championship yet, but you hold him in high esteem. Why and where?
Well, I wrote a column last week saying that since I've been here in 1987, other than Pat Summitt, Tony Vitello has been Tennessee's best coach. The counterpoint to that would be, well, as you said, he hasn't won a national title, but to me, that's not the be-all and end-all. Just like the greatest quarterbacks don't always have a Super Bowl ring. I think Vitello, when you look at his body of work and what he's accomplished in a short term, and also compare it with the history of Tennessee baseball, when he took over the program, it was one of the worst programs in the SEC. And it's so hard to climb from the bottom when you got so many good teams ahead of you and so many established programs. He did that, much like Skip Bertman did at LSU. And I just think he's a total package as a coach. He works really hard. He's a great recruiter, a really good evaluator of talent. But most of all, it just is a relentless work ethic. But you look at Tennessee's players, he's successful in the transfer portal. He's successful recruiting. High school, they've got more probably prospects in this recruiting class than any they've ever had. That's Tony Vitello talking, not me. And we don't know how that will play out if some of those players will go pro. But he's done all that. He's hit the transfer portal, recruited high schools well, developed players. And you look at how players have gotten so many, time after time, player after player have developed in this program. 1 year, they are like a part-time player. Kavaris Tears had, I think, 56 at-bats last season. And he's one of the best outfielders in the game. So, yeah, I just think I just don't think any other coach can match that. That's just my opinion. I just think he's Tennessee's best coach, other than Pat Summitt. And that somebody emailed was, well, are you forgetting General Nealon? Well, as I am, I wasn't enough to cover General Nealon, so I can't.
John was just an intern when General Nealon was around, so it was difficult for him to really soak everything in because he had to go to school and everything too.
Yeah, I thought I made it pretty clear. I spelled it out in the column, and it was even in a headline that in my time here. So yeah.
So, John, just to throw a few names, we'll start. I'll let you and Dave riff on one person we might mention, but
I mean, I'll Philip Fulmer. He has a championship, right?
Okay, I'll just get you. I will let you two go. You guys covered him. I never covered Fulmer, so I'll let you two have fun comparing Philip Fulmer to Tony Vitello.
John, I respect the heck out of you. I see where you're coming from. I think Tony Vitello is an absolute diamond in the rough. I'm as high on him as you are. almost. I can't give him the title of best coach in those, 30 some odd years, other than Pat Summitt, without winning a championship. Now, I have a feeling in about a week and a half, we're going to be having a different discussion. But right now, I can't put him above Philip Fulmer.
Well, but winning one national championship doesn't make you the best coach in your sport. I mean, Les Miles won a national title. Ed Orgeron won a national title. Does anybody think they're one of the greatest, among the greatest coaches of all time? Of course not. I mean, you can win. Go back to, Gene Chizik at Auburn. He won a national championship and got fired a couple of years later.
Didn't he get fired the next year?
No, it was 2 years later. But
okay.
Things went south very quickly. He couldn't keep Cam Newton around. But Gene Chizik, was considered a really good defensive coach. He's had success as defensive coordinator. But those things happen. One championship doesn't mean you're the best coach. You look at compare Philip Fulmer. Look at the state of Tennessee football when Philip Fulmer took over the program from Johnny Majors. Took it from Johnny Majors, okay? Tennessee was competing. It was tied for 2 conference championships, was competing for national titles, and Johnny Majors had some horrendously difficult schedules during that time. So the program was already in great shape. Philip Fulmer took it to another level. Tony Vitello took over a program where it barely existed. Anybody that wandered, if you wandered into Lindsey Nelson Stadium, you did just that. You wandered into Lindsey Nelson Stadium. You're walking around campus and say, hey, what is it? What stadium is that? Is that soccer field or, it's baseball. Let's go in there. Maybe they're playing a game. We can watch an inning or two. No, that's okay. Let's just keep moving. So I just, it was a completely different thing. And he took it from ground zero. Also in football, the SEC overall, other than Florida, wasn't as strong as it has been so many times. And as it is now, it was a different kind of league. A lot of programs were down. Georgia wasn't at the top of its game. LSU wasn't top of its game. Alabama wasn't. Auburn wasn't, on and on. Tony Vitello took it over when SEC baseball was at its peak, its pinnacle. And, he turned Tennessee into the best program. You can make a case now if you look at college baseball and say, who has the best program in college baseball? A lot of people would say Tennessee. And if you'd ask who's the best coach, they would say Tony Vitello.
Given where they came from, you make a strong argument. I want Caleb's take. And I know nowadays everybody's trying to save money, but that's not the case with your insurance. State Farm, Don Self. Customer service still matters. He's the epitome of perfection when it comes to customer service and taking care of your claim. Everybody's trying to save money, and you can go with lower priced insurers if you would like to, but that's not the direction you need to go. Just go to donself.net. If you're not in his area, he'll send you to a State Farm agent that'll take care of you and take care of those claims. donself.net, or call 423-396-2126, 423-396-2126, or go to donself.net. Caleb?
So, John, a couple of names I want to just throw out, because it's not like Tennessee has been the gold standard for hiring good coaches the last 30 years. So it's not that hard to have Tony Vitello that high up there.
Well, Jerry Green.
Well, I was going to go to basketball real quick because this is his 7th year, and it's really only his 6th because 2020 he didn't really coach a season. Bruce Pearl was at Tennessee basketball for 6 years. Would you say Tony Vitello's run in 6 years with Tennessee baseball was more impressive than what Bruce Pearl did with Tennessee basketball when he took that over 6 years?
Yeah. I don't really think it's that close. And don't get me wrong. Bruce Pearl did an incredible job with the program, and the two are comparable in their skill set, I think, because Bruce Pearl was a great promoter, great at marketing his program. I mean, Tennessee lost a generation of basketball fans, and Bruce Pearl brought them back and then some. So yeah, in fact, if I had the next best coach Tennessee's had since I've been here, I would say Bruce Pearl.
Okay, I'm going to argue with both of those, John, because much like Tony Vitello, Josh Heupel had to start at ground zero, maybe less than zero. He was like John Travolta in the 80s. And there's NCAA issues. There's everything going on. And look at Tennessee that is producing a Heisman candidate and a possible national championship team, at least a college football playoff team, we would think, in season number 4. I don't see how Josh Heupel isn't the best coach walking around on Tennessee's campus. Do you agree or disagree, John?
I was just kind of letting that hang there. I mean, no,
you don't think that. I mean, you're high on Heupel too.
Yeah, I am. I'd be even higher if he'd pick the right quarterback all the time.
So basically, is that the differentiating factor? If he would have played, Nico last year, you would have him above Tony Vitello.
No, I would not. I don't think overall. Again, I mean, I just think Vitello's done a better job. He's been to, my gosh, in the last 4 years, he's been to 3 College World Series.
Yeah.
I go by Josh Heupel, and I am I mean, I think he's one of the game's best offensive coaches, but that 22 team kind of came out of nowhere. And I give him so much credit for the 2021 team picking up the pieces that Jeremy Pruitt. Yeah.
I mean, that team could have crashed to the point where it would have affected them for another decade.
Well, but I don't think Josh has raised the program that much. Another thing, it's different when you're comparing football because Tennessee football kind of promotes itself. You don't have to work at other areas. And Josh Heupel, when he goes to how many significant comments has he ever made in an interview? Josh Heupel.
He prides himself. He'll leave the press conference setting and say, try to get something out of that. And
yeah, well, no, I mean, that's fine, but I'm just saying in basketball, Pat Summitt couldn't have done that in women's basketball because she had to build her program out of nothing. And Tony Vitello had to build his program from the ground floor. He couldn't just coach.
So you're illustrating how much more difficult his job was than the other jobs.
Yeah, because he didn't have to. Josh Heupel didn't have to worry about that. He had to worry about picking up the pieces what few pieces Jeremy Pruitt left behind. But he didn't have to. He had to go around and speak everywhere and do all these things to get people interested in the program because Neyland Stadium will sell itself and it'll be a packed house. Tony Vitello, I mean, you look what he did with the record. What has he done with attendance? I mean, Tennessee's cramming about 6,300 people in the Lindsey Nelson Stadium when it couldn't get 300 in there at one point. And now next year you'll be able to get 8,000 people in there. So yeah, there's just so much more to do in connection with that sport. And then that in turn helps you sell it to recruits. You don't have to promote Neyland Stadium and the fan passion in football. It's just there. And so I think there's really we're talking apples and oranges here.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, John. I think the last promoter of Tennessee football that was there was Johnny Majors, who I felt I wasn't around. I was very young, but it seemed like he was a very good promoter and was great in interviews. What about just my last?
Always willing to show up and have a drink with a booster. Sorry.
What about my last? The last one before we get out of here, because the last good coach that Tennessee has actually had over the last 30 years, and there haven't been that many, like I said. But what about What about Rick Barnes? Where would you have Tony Vitello ahead of Rick Barnes?
Oh yeah. There's
okay.
There is a.
I mean, I don't think. Huh? No, I mean Rick Barnes. I mean, I would have Bruce Pearl ahead of Rick Barnes because just from what Bruce Pearl did, not just in coaching but in marketing and in promoting. And Rick Barnes is a great coach. He was he's a Hall of Fame coach, obviously. But I'm just looking at what he did at Tennessee, where the program was when he got here. He did improve it dramatically. He's not the promoter that Bruce Pearl was. But when we're having this discussion now, it tells us how much better off Tennessee is in terms of coaching in all sports than it has been in the past. When you think about it, I mean, it's pretty solid in coaching. We don't know how the women's basketball coach will do, but in the other sports, they've had a run of success here.
Hey, take one moment and hit that like and subscribe button for me. Also, vote on our poll that's on our YouTube page right now. Who will accomplish more in their career? Tony Vitello total package with 85%. Philip Fulmer has a title with 15%. 1-5. Does that surprise anybody? Caleb? John? Surprises me a little bit.
I mean, a championship in football is the value of like 7 in baseball, though. So, I mean, there is that.
John, let me ask you this. If an athletic director was 100% honest, you gave him truth serum, you said, hey, you can have a Bruce Pearl type that's going to push the limits a little bit, but that's going to give you excitement, that's going to promote the program. He's all that. Or you can have a Rick Barnes type that's there for 30 years, never wins a championship, but has a 30-year career. Obviously, hasn't been in one place 30 years, but you know what I mean. You can have that consistency, and you can have a program that other programs respect. If an athletic director took truth serum and answered that question, who would he rather hire?
He'd rather hire the 30-year guy.
I don't know. Bruce Pearl was pretty exciting. And even in Rick Barnes' best years, other than getting Dalton Connect, it hasn't been exciting.
I know, but I don't think athletic directors are that you know what they look at it as? A coach I don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
They know everything will run smoothly. I think if you look at the kind of players that Rick Barnes has recruited, I don't think a lot of guys have been arrested among his recruits. Can you think of anybody? And I'm sure, you know.
As a matter of fact, I think as a whole, Tennessee is recruiting better athletes. And I don't know if that's across the board. Obviously, people can't drive in Athens, Georgia. But other than that, I don't hear about as many kids getting in trouble, which makes me think they're doing a better job of covering it up, quite frankly. 2 minutes. How about that? And we'll get to a topic that you will want to hear about, and that is the Achilles heel for Tennessee this year. What might it be? John Adams had a suggestion, and we'll get into that. John Wilkerson will join us in a little bit. About 2 minutes, back with John off Those Sports.
Wheel drive, $31,954. 24 Ford Edge, all-wheel drive, $37,975. 24 F-250 4x4 Crew Cab, $54,760. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TristarHatsCo.com. That's TristarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TristarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TristarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Might be a conversation for another day, but I know that Rick Barnes deserves an awful lot of credit for the way he raises young men, and that includes academics. But as the discussion is going on the message board, the simple fact is it's getting closer to professional athletics, and academics are not as important. And I don't think they're checking because the money is way, way too big. John, you picked Tennessee to have a heck of a year this year. Is your official pick out for the Vols football team this fall?
Well, I mean, I rank SEC teams right after the national championship games, one of those early preseason ratings. I've mentioned more than once, I think, in columns. I mean, I think Tennessee will go 10-2 this year, and which would put it in the playoffs. Most likely, I can't imagine 10-2 in the SEC not getting in the playoffs.
Caleb?
Yes, I think Tennessee goes 11-1, but I'm saving what I think they do in the postseason. I'm not there yet.
Well, let me ask you this, John. We all think that Tennessee is going to do well this year. What's the Achilles heel? Do they have one?
Probably a more than one, but so does everybody else. But I mean, you go back to, you look at the secondary and what's happened under Josh Heupel, Tennessee's secondary. We've got a new cast of characters, but there's still question marks there. I don't know how good Tennessee will be in the secondary. I think it'll have a good pass rush, and that will certainly impact the secondary in a positive way. So I think front seven could be pretty solid. Particularly the front 3 or 4. I still wonder about the linebacking a little bit. But as always, when it comes down to the bigger issue, you would just say defense. I think Tennessee goes back closer to 41 points a game than last season when it was 31 points per game. I think it will be able to outscore most people, most teams. So that's why I'm, as high on Tennessee as I am. And I think Tennessee has about as accommodating as a schedule as you can have when you play in the SEC.
John, I want to get to the Achilles heel you mentioned, and that's the backup quarterback position. We discussed that yesterday. How concerned are you about the fact that Nico is not a big guy? He's going to run some. He could get knocked out of a game. We've seen that happen before in Josh Heupel's offense. How concerned are you about the backup quarterback position?
Well, I think almost every program needs to be concerned about its backup quarterback position. Tennessee doesn't have a proven player with any experience there. Gaston Moore would be the likely backup, but there would be a big, significant drop-off from 1 to 2. There are a few college teams that are in good shape in that area, but most aren't in this transfer area. You can't build up depth at quarterback. But with Nico, you have to use him judiciously as a runner. When you're playing Chattanooga, you don't want Nico running 10 or 12 times in that game. You got to protect him. You got to. I think it's really important. I thought your offensive line has got to give him really good protection and pass blocking. So, yeah, I think that's an issue too. College football is kind of like pro football in so many ways now. If your number one quarterback goes down, it's what are you going to do now? I mean, it just completely changes everything. And Tennessee has one of the best quarterbacks in the country. So to lose him, the drop off would be terribly significant.
Caleb, I want you to jump in here, but I want to share. I want to report what I've been told about Tennessee's quarterback position. And that is, we joked around about Gaston Moore last year. Gaston Moore can play. There's some people that really like him, not only in Tennessee's camp, outside, that have seen him play before. So if there was a game on Saturday, I think Gaston Moore would be the backup quarterback. And I know people think that's crazy because of Jake Merklinger and he's highly rated. But the person I spoke to within the program said it looks like a Gaston Moore thing. And I said, well, does that mean Merklinger kind of gets caught in the middle with George McIntyre coming in? And he said, we'll just see how it shakes out. But I think that's a real possibility. Caleb, I think you'd always want to be good at the backup quarterback position. I just don't know that you can in this NIL age.
I think what Josh Heupel does is recruits, because we saw the same thing with Taven Jackson a couple of years ago, who was brought in. And basically what he's doing is he's getting 4-stars that in his mind are solid enough quarterbacks to the point where if his prized bull goes down, he maybe has a competent backup. And that 4-star agrees to commit to Tennessee to say, hey, maybe I have a shot in the dark of maybe winning the job or, beating out one of his prized recruits. I think that's the way that everybody's thinking. It's a win-win for everybody. If it doesn't work out, then they can transfer at the end of the year. So Jake Merklinger can stay till the end of the year. George McIntyre can arrive. If Merklinger finds out he's not going to beat out George McIntyre, he can bolt like Taven Jackson. I will say, if what you're saying is true, Dave, that's a big red flag about Jake Merklinger. Because even if you think Gaston Moore can play, if someone's going to tell me that Gaston Moore has it over Merklinger because of the experience, I'm not buying that. I don't think there's a lot of experience required to pick up Josh Heupel's offense for a quarterback. I think it's pretty simple, honestly. So if you're struggling in Josh Heupel's offense, we saw this with Joe Milton a couple of years ago. If you're struggling with Josh Heupel's offense, when you start, you're going to be struggling 2 years down the road. It's not a complicated offense to figure out for a quarterback.
John, I'll ask you this question. Tennessee fans, are they worried? The poll question, should you be worried about Tennessee's backup quarterback position this fall? A lot, a little, not at all. How disconcerting do you think it should be?
Well, I don't know how these guys will play, so it's kind of an unknown thing. But I would be extremely concerned about it. I just because what that's a really good point Caleb makes. If you bring in a 4-star quarterback and he can't get a grasp on this offense right away, you wondered if you brought in the right 4-star quarterback. I think
I'm going to make an argument in Josh Heupel's favor, and I feel very strongly about this, having covered recruiting. I don't think you can get your pick of the litter of a quarterback the year after you got your pick of the litter of a quarterback. So I think with Merklinger, here's a guy out there that liked Tennessee. He realized that he could transfer if things don't work out. I think a coach, and I remember Philip Fulmer used to always say this, you want a quarterback in every class, a quarterback in every class. It may not be possible, but they may have strived for that and taken Merklinger, who could be solid, but is not yet spectacular. That would be understandable, would it not?
Sure. I mean, it was going to be hard to recruit somebody after that. After Nico, I just think the key thing, and I hate to keep harping on this, but to me, it's very significant, was that Josh Heupel went out and really went after the guy he wanted to get was Joe Milton, the transfer from Michigan. And I don't think Joe Milton's skill set fit this offense. I think he proved that in his time here. Tennessee won 9 games with him last season, but I think Joe Milton's better suited for a different type of offense. So but that Josh Heupel was determined to get him. That was his big get to bring in here. It makes me wonder, how good is he at finding quarterbacks, not just the best quarterback, but the best quarterback for his system. I think Nico's the best quarterback for his system, so he was able to get him. But I mean, to me, that should that be so difficult to find a quarterback whose skill set matches what you do offensively?
Caleb, it shouldn't be. I think he just fell in love with Joe Milton's clunky skill set.
Yeah, he fell in love with the arm. I mean, we've covered this a lot. He just fell in love with the big arm, and it's funny. We just compared Heupel to Tony Vitello, and John brought up a great point with Milton being, not picking the right quarterback because, if this were baseball and Heupel's personnel management were like that, it'd be really bad, because one of the big differences between coaching baseball in college and coaching football in college is football play calling is a factor, an offensive system is a factor. Baseball, I mean, 90% of success for a baseball program is roster management and talent evaluation on the recruiting trail, which where Tony Vitello has been off the charts good at, quite honestly.
He really has, yeah.
Speaking of off the charts, something, Les Miles is off the charts, something, challenged maybe. Les Miles is suing LSU. Why? Why does Les want more?
So Les Miles is suing LSU because the wins that they vacated during his time that they agreed to vacate has cost him his eligibility for the College Football Hall of Fame, because it pushed his win percentage for his career below 600, which is a requirement to get into the College Football Hall of Fame. There's so many ways we can go with this, because should there be a win percentage to get to the College Football Hall of Fame? Should Les Miles be in it anyway, no matter what? And is this another coach who's being cost this is Mike Leach, who's like 2 wins short of the College Football Hall of Fame. And should he be in the Hall of Fame, even though he doesn't have a 600 win percentage? So it's just, the question is, does Les Miles belong? Is the win percentage fair? Should Mike Leach belong? It's just funny to me that Les Miles, of all people, would be the one to sue over this, though.
Well, let's go to 4 downs right now and go ahead and get to those, brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas.
4 Downs brought to you by Dynasty Spas, the most comfortable spas made in the United States of America, right here in East Tennessee. Drop in for the all-new showroom in Athens. Dynasty Spas, perfect for all 4 seasons. 4 Downs, presented by Off the Hook Sports.
All right, here we go. First down, Coop.
Coop here. First down.
Is Les Miles a Hall of Famer? I'm going to go a big no on that.
That's hot.
Well, I mean,
not even difficult.
He tried to eat the field on his very worst days. He couldn't keep time. So I say no.
I say no.
I don't even think it's. I mean, I don't think it's close. Like
even if his winning percentage was 600, he's not a Hall of Famer.
I mean, what lawyer talked him into this, John? Or are they doing it pro bono just so he can get some more pub? And I don't even know if he's still the coach at Kansas.
No, he definitely is the coach at Kansas, because Kansas has been winning. No, but see, and Caleb brought this up, the problem, the bigger issue here is the winning percentage. I think it's ridiculous that Johnny Majors isn't in the Hall of Fame as a coach. He's in as a player, but not as a coach because of his winning percentage.
Can I get to that?
Huh?
Can I get to that?
Yeah.
Here. Second down.
Winning percentage should be a part of it.
No, it shouldn't.
Why is that the only Hall of Fame that I'm aware of that has requirements?
Well, I mean, you look at Johnny Majors' career, where he went. He won at Iowa State, a downtrodden program. He went to Pittsburgh. It was one of the worst programs ever in college football when he got there, and he created one of the best teams ever there. Tennessee was down when he went there. I mean, that makes all the difference in the world. Why in the world would you don't have it in baseball? You say, Somebody has to hit so many home runs to be eligible. Somebody has to have a certain batting average to be eligible. Winning percentage, no, because it depends on where you coached and the state of the program before you got there. And Johnny Majors wasn't rewarded. He did a Hall of Fame coaching job in rebuilding 3 programs. How many coaches have done that? That's quite an accomplishment. Not 1, not 2, but 3 programs. In Iowa State, he did it when the Big 8 was the best conference in the country.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to. I'm with you, and it's college football approaches things the way sometimes I think society approaches things, which is to say that if you are wealthy in some way, you made it on your own with no help whatsoever. And I'm thinking, no, most of the metrics that we judge wealth in this country is luck and who was born into it. And, going 600 at Tennessee when they're in their prime versus, like you say, at Iowa State, totally different metrics sometimes.
Let me ask one that might make us look a little jerky.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
Mike Leach can never get in the Hall of Fame. People have brought up some issue with that because of his winning percentage. I'm going to start with Caleb. Caleb, what do you think about the late Mike Leach? Should he be in the Hall of Fame?
I'm a fan, but I can't put Mike Leach in the Hall of Fame because I know he had a cutting edge offense, but if you're going to give him credit for the offense, then you have to put Hal Mummy in the Hall of Fame because Hal Mummy was just as much a part of that. And also, it's not like what Mike Leach did at Washington State had never been done before. I mean, Mike Price took Washington State to a few Rose Bowls, I think. And so all you're selling me on Mike Leach is that 1-11-2 season at Texas Tech. Without that season, there's nothing Mike Leach did at a program that had not been done at a program before.
John, I'm going to say that, and this sounds crazy because he didn't win a national title, but I've got Mike Leach because of the way he tweaked the game and changed the game in my mind as a Hall of Famer, but not Les Miles. I'm not necessarily arguing with Caleb. It's just the way it strikes me. How does he strike you?
Yeah, I mean, think about it this way. If you were hiring a coach and you could get Mike Leach or Les Miles, who would you pick?
But that's not the standard of a Hall of Famer, though. Okay, Les Miles is like...
It's true. I mean,
Les Miles is the worst coach to ever win a national title.
Caleb's argument that neither should be in is probably better than the argument that if not Les, then Mike.
I think Mike Leach, I mean, I think it might be a close call on him. But I do think when you spend your career at places that don't traditionally win a lot. Yeah, different coaches had success at Washington State, but not consistent, overwhelming success. So you go Washington State, Texas Tech, and Mississippi State. So yeah, I can see why you wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame. But if he won 60% of his games, if he'd have been at the right place, I guess he would have won 60% of his games, you could say. How close is he, Dave?
2 wins short.
So if he if he does
that's not
that.
my only barometer, though.
See, but
I'm not saying it's yours, but I think Mike Leach was so well respected, and I agree with Dave points, the impact he had on the game.
But if you're going to do that, why not Hal Mummy then? Because that was Hal Mummy's offense before Mike Leach.
Well,
because
I would answer that
Hal
with Mike.
Mummy went. Well,
Go ahead, John.
Hal Mummy went for it on too many times on 4th down from his own 20 to start a game.
Hal Mummy's my guy, man. Hal Mummy's my guy. Hal Mummy hated the punt.
Too many times, not twice, not once, too many times.
I mean, it wasn't even a question. I remember him there at Neyland Stadium. It's like I was 21.
I remember sitting next to you saying, "There's no chance he goes for it. He's just going to go out there and go hut 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 and call a timeout." And sure enough, he went for it.
Yeah.
Do you remember what year that was?
Gosh, I don't even remember when Al Mummy coached, but
For those of you that were too young to remember How Mummy, think of that one friend that you've got that you play Madden with that drinks too much and goes for it on fourth down every single time and starts kicking onside kicks and starts doing stupid stuff. And you're like, none of this is sound football logic. You're no fun to play with. Get out of here. So I've got a couple of friends like that.
It actually is, but I'm a probabilities guy, and the punt is the most overused play in football.
Yes. One of the guys who did that coach is at Powell High School now.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
Right. Fourth down. Will Philip Fulmer make the Hall of Fame?
Well, he's in there.
Oh, he's already in the Hall of Fame?
Well,
as a player or a coach?
I don't think you can make it twice. As a player, no.
Okay. He wasn't much of a
he's
player.
in there.
He was like a 240. Okay. Well, I shorted him. Okay, well, how much better of a career did Philip Fulmer have than Les Miles?
I think Philip Fulmer had and John can, sorry, John, to jump in first if you want to say it. I just want to get your thoughts on this. I think Fulmer, as good as Tennessee was, still had a much more difficult path than Les Miles did at LSU.
I think they were very similar in that Les Miles, when he was at LSU, had to contend with Nick Saban in Alabama. Philip Fulmer at Tennessee had to contend with Florida and Steve Spurrier. So they were similar in that respect. I mean, they were even though they each won national titles, but there were some other similarities. Philip Fulmer took over the program that Johnny Majors had built. Les Miles took over the program that Nick Saban built. So there were a lot of similarities. I would take Philip Fulmer over Les Miles, though. There would be no question.
Do you think Philip Fulmer should be in a Hall of Fame?
Yeah, based on his success. He had but again, I don't like the winning percentage idea. I just think it's silly to say that. I mean, and so, I mean, you judge somebody on their body of work, yes, but winning at Iowa State, when Johnny Majors he lost 3 games in the 1971 season at Iowa State. I don't know if that was his third year there or what. The only teams he lost to were number 1, Nebraska, number 2, Oklahoma, number 3, Colorado. Those were the top 3 teams in the country, not just the conference. Those were his only losses. I mean, that was an incredible coaching achievement, what he did at Iowa State, that kind of just gets lost along the way. And because he got plenty of attention for what he did at Pittsburgh, which was terrific. But that Iowa State program, it was really down, and he was able to lift it up when that conference was at the very top.
All righty. Let's, John, we want to encourage people to join Hooker's Corner. Caleb, if you can put the link in the message board, I would greatly appreciate it, where you can be a John, win great prizes. But we got more Johns on this program than you can imagine. John Wilkerson, John Adams. Caleb just had a baby named John Quincy Adams.
Quincy John. I named him Quincy John Calhoun.
Quincy John. Oh, I'm sorry. John Adams, we'll let you out of here. Brought to you by Neubert Collision Center. Thank you, sir. Have a blessed day.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, John.
Good one, John.
But look at John Wilkerson joining us now. John in Omaha, one of my favorite guys absolutely in the world. John, you having any fun yet?
Yeah, doing all right. First time ever 2-0 for Tennessee, so I give it a thumbs up right now.
Did you do anything Friday night? I mean, but in all seriousness, where does that game rank among your favorite games to call? I'm no kidding. I listened to the entire 30 minutes, I think, of your call at the end just by itself. You did just an incredible job, and you had an incredible a portrait to paint as well.
Well, one, appreciate that. And I think it jumps to the top of the list. Been thinking about it when you think of what the setting was, what was on the line, and the performance. I do believe that Friday's win over Florida State becomes Tennessee's biggest win in the history of the program.
Wow. I can't argue with that. Caleb?
I think you actually have a great point, John. That Tennessee baseball. So we're joined by John Wilkerson talking Tennessee baseball in the College World Series. And Tennessee's 2-0, 1 win away from the college baseball College World Series final. Excuse me, John. You're right. It's the first time ever they're 2-0 in the College World Series. It's the first time since 1951 that they've won multiple College World Series games, period. Is this the first time since you've been covering where when they were in the College World Series that it seemed like they had a legitimate chance to win it? Because I'm not 2 years ago we thought they were going to win it, but they didn't make the College World Series. But doesn't it seem like every time they're in the College World Series, up until then, it's always been, let's see what happens, have a little fun, take those jello shots at Omaha, and maybe they'll win a game or two. But is this the first? Am I getting the vibe right that that's how it usually is when Tennessee's in the College World Series?
Well, I'll tell you what, and this is actually the fourth time that they've won multiple games, because they were Final Four essentially in '95 and 2001. They won 2 games each trip, and then they lost to the eventual champions. They lost to Miami in '01. They lost to Cal State Fullerton in '95, and they finished runner-up to Oklahoma in 1951. And I'll say this, the 2005 team, I thought was one that was primed to come compete. You had Luke Hochaver. You also had Chase Headley. You could go on down the list, add a number of guys that you really liked the way that team was built. And unfortunately, that was the first team to go 2-Q, as they call it, 2 and barbecue. And then that's what Tennessee did in their return in 21. They won a game last year, which I thought was a big step forward. But yeah, as you were the number 1 seed in the tournament and you didn't get here in 22, I do think this is the best team that Tennessee has brought to Omaha at any point in time since 51, when Sid Hatfield, Herky Payne, and the guys were here.
I was such a big Herky guy back in the day.
You always were a Herky Payne guy.
Oh, yeah. I remember the jersey and all that. And, when we – the family traveled cross country to go see Herky. I remember all that. John, who are some key players? Because what I love about the College World Series is you got a couple of days off. If you win, you get some fresh arms, but guys change. The key players coming into the College World Series may be a little bit different than heading into the second phase of it, which starts Wednesday. Who are some guys specifically that you think need to step up in this second half?
Well, I'll first say it this way, that you got an all-time performance from Christian Moore in the first game, and one guy that has really stood out is Kavares Tears, because he had the 2-run home run that starts the rally against the Seminoles when you're down 9-4, and then it was his triple when you're down 3 that starts the bottom of the 9th. And then he follows that up against Carolina with the 3-run home run that opens the scoring, and then gives you another run batted in late with a double down the right field line to give you the 5-run lead. I've been really impressed with what the redshirt sophomore has done. And you can point to so many different guys that have already had a hand in their success. What I would point to is I'm really excited to see Xander Seacrest get the ball for Tennessee against either North Carolina or Florida State, whichever team survives today's elimination game. In the last month, he's been remarkable. He has been the Game 3 starter throughout the second half of the season, especially the SEC schedule. And yet I think it's his last 4 starts, he's got an earned run average under 1. He led the way against Tennessee, for Tennessee against South Carolina. They win that game against the Gamecocks, which leaves the door open for them to win the Eastern Division and the SEC regular season title as they did. He was then instrumental in 6 strong innings against Vanderbilt to allow you to survive your bracket in the SEC tournament. And he was so strong for the Vols as they closed out against Southern Miss in the Knoxville Regional, and then did not allow an earned run in the Super Regional final. So I'm anxious to see Xander Seacrest, to see if he can keep it going, because he has been masterful. And then it'll be interesting to also watch who's the first man up out of the bullpen, because as you point out, Dave, you've got a couple of days off. Just about everybody should be available, with the exception of, I think that A.J. Causey and Chris Stamos would probably be held in reserve for whether Tennessee plays an if necessary game on Thursday, or they play the first game of the championship series, which would be Saturday night.
So, John, I just wanted to have a little fun with you real quick. We're talking, this is Tennessee's best college. You're right, and I stand corrected. They won multiple games in 95 and 01, but it was after they lost the first game, so they were in the lower round losers bracket. I guess you call it losers bracket both times, and then was just 2. So it's definitely their best College World Series showing since 51. Well, later in the 1951 season, in the 1951 year, the football team went on to win a national championship.
I was kind of wondering if anybody was going to bring that up.
And is this a good... now, to be fair, that football team also shared the national title in 1950. And had they done the voting at the end of the bowl games and not the end of the regular season, the 50 team would have been national champs. But
hey, John, this just in. Caleb knows enough history to make you physically ill.
Well, if anything, had they done the voting after the 51 season, Tennessee would not have been national champs. But anyways, bygones be bygones.
He reads Wikipedia for fun, John.
Is that a good omen for 2024 in football?
Well, it doesn't hurt. I mean, that's just it. There have been really these waves to where you could point to 1951. You could point to those years in the mid to late 90s, especially in 98. Now, Tennessee baseball was going through some peaks and valleys at that point in time. But sure, I do think there can be hand in hand, because I think the deeper we get into this build up to the season, there are more and more projections that have Tennessee as a potential college football playoff team. I mean, there are 12 seats at the table, so you would like to think you're going to have a shot. But with a first-year starter at quarterback, there's some proving they have to do. But I really think the pieces are in place. And I love the fact that Josh Heupel is so confident in his roster and how it's been constructed that he pulled so little from the portal. Tennessee lost more than it took out, and I think they've been very choosy as to who they've invited to join. So I think it's very similar to what Tony Vitello has done with the baseball program. You look for those that you know are going to have an instant impact. And I see a lot of similarities between Tony Vitello and Josh Heupel, with one, the way they operate as the head coach of their respective team, as well as how they go about building through recruiting and then going for those big puzzle pieces that could be maybe the finishing touch you need to win it all.
John, I want to, if I can steal you for a couple more minutes, I want to get your thoughts on the expectations for Tennessee football, because you and I haven't had a chance to sit down and talk about that. How about lunch when you get back from Omaha? I would love to visit. Quality Tire Pro, the Eberle family, has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service, automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more. All work covered by a nationwide warranty. Cherokee Blvd, or online at qualitytirepros.com. Qualitytirepros.com. Tell Bo that Off the Hook Sports, Dave Hooker said hello. John, would Tennessee rather face North Carolina or Florida State?
One of the things I like about this team is they're going to be ready for which either side comes out. I'll say this. I do think there would be the greater concern with Florida State and its lineup, because they have crushed it the entire NCAA tournament. I think the Seminoles would provide the greater challenge. I don't think there's any question that there is a fire that burns for Florida State with that check swing and everything that has owned has had free rent in the free space in the middle of their thought process since Tennessee and them squared off on Friday. I do think that Tennessee probably matches up better with North Carolina because they did such a good job against that lineup. I do think North Carolina has better pitching, so it can be a case of pick your poison. I think that Carolina might have the better arms in reserve to face Tennessee in a game tomorrow. I think Florida State's bats would probably be the bigger challenge for Volunteers pitchers as they square off if they meet a second time. But I do think that the team with the better chance to win today is the Seminoles, and I would rather see North Carolina again, simply for the fact that I'd get to see Dave Nathan again.
Oh, there you go. Back in the day. So now we got a bunch of Johns. Back in the day, you guys had a couple of Daves. After me, Dave, you had Dave Nathan. Good guy.
Very much so.
Cool. Yeah. Please tell him I said hello and that I might be bugging him if they win today. So, John, have a great trip. There is a casino nearby that you should avoid. But I will say it's one of 2 casinos that I've ever left a winner. So I'll just give that in St. Louis. And both of them were with Mike Stoll. Maybe he was the lucky guy.
I was about to say, this was when you were the voice of the Thundercats, right?
The voice of the Thundercats. Yes, top of the resume right there. John Wilkerson, voice of the Diamond Vols, and does studio work for football, basketball, just as good of a guy as they come and as great of a radio guy as they come. You can hear him in the mornings on WNML in Knoxville from 6 to 9 a.m. Morning show treating you well. That's pretty early, John. I've been there, buddy.
It is. But also, I'm glad to say it is. So sure.
Awesome. John, have a blessed trip. Be safe. Tell Penny I said hello, and thank you very much.
Absolutely. Dave, appreciate it. Caleb, always good to see you.
Thank you, John. John,
have a good one, John.
Absolutely the best there in Omaha. Yeah, I taught Mike Stoll, former Tennessee offensive lineman, how to play blackjack. I went back to the room for a second, and he comes back and he said, I sat down at the wrong table, and it was the $25 table instead of the $5 table. And I felt embarrassed. So I just kept playing. He won $2,500 in like 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh, really?
He quit. And he didn't play. He did the right thing. He was so smart. 2 minutes. And then Steve Sarkisian is showing why he may not be attuned to what prospects want nowadays. In 2 minutes, Texas's head coach is saying some weird stuff off the Hook Sports.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Experience it all at Ray Varner Ford in Clinton. Need a quick fix or maintenance? Visit our Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center. Keep your Ford running smoothly with the experts in our service department. Ready for your next Ford? Our sales team is here to guide you to this 24 Ford Escape all-wheel drive, $31,954. 24 Ford Edge all-wheel drive, $37,975. 24 F-250 4x4 Crew Cab, $54,760. Local you trust, experience you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
He tries very hard. The Dave Hooker Show.
All I know is when we win a game, it's a team win. When we lose a game, it's a team loss.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable!
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
All right, there you go. You can join Hooker's Corner via John. We'd love to have you on board. All you have to do is join right there. It's on your screen, or we can put that in the message board as well. By the way, that poll question's still ongoing. And that is, I'm worried about Tennessee's backup quarterback position this fall. A lot, a little, not at all. Caleb, where do you think people fall right now? Just curious.
I'm going to say a little.
A little's 48%. Not at all is 48%. A lot's 3%. I probably should be somewhere in the middle of a lot and a little. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
I mean, you would hate for
Particularly
Nico
if what you
to
told
roll
me is true, that if what you told me is true that Gaston Moore would be the backup today, that's a big concern.
Caleb, have I ever told you anything that's untrue?
No, I believe everything you say.
Yeah, Fortin's been pretty spot on, but you always remember the ones you don't get, like Lane Kiffin. All right, so there's the QR code. Is that what they call it, the QR code? That you can go ahead and join Hooker's Corner. It's just $9.98. So we were able to give away an awesome monthly prize, and that was the Tony Vitello College World Series autographed baseball. So guess what we're giving away now, Caleb Calhoun? This is pretty cool. A John Henderson autographed mini helmet. How sweet is that? John Henderson, one of the greatest Vols ever, autographed a helmet thanks to our friends at Sports Treasures. We have that to give away. Sports Treasures carries over 5 million sports treasures. That's a lot of sports treasures. And so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia daily updates at Sports Treasures TN. Sports Treasures TN. I will say this. Why can't we give Josh Heupel a little bit of credit for liking and identifying Gaston Moore instead of giving him criticism for maybe missing on Merklinger, which I'm not saying.
We don't know how good Gaston Moore is.
I know, but based on what I'm told, he's really good. And this is somebody that knows quarterbacks.
Jimmy Hyams, when you were not on, Dave, I had him on the show, and he was telling me that many people were saying the same thing about Joe Milton because Joe Milton was throwing against no competition, but that people in the know understood Hendon Hooker was better. Heupel does not disseminate. Heupel does a very good job of disseminating misinformation.
Okay, but no. We're not discussing whether or not he's better than Nico. We're discussing whether or not he's better than Merklinger, and if that's a concern.
I know that, but I think the coaches, Tennessee's coaches, Josh Heupel manipulates narratives a lot.
Doesn't everybody do that?
Yes, they all do it. Josh Heupel, though, sometimes gets caught because guess what? He manipulated a narrative about Joe Milton that was blatantly untrue. Okay, I'm going to say it, and you guys can hate me for this, but Josh Heupel got caught the way Butch Jones used to get caught manipulating narratives with the Joe Milton saga.
Yeah, but I think everybody manipulates narratives as head coaches, so I don't think that's necessarily a bad
but you're not supposed to get caught lying after you're not supposed to get caught doing it. Josh Heupel got caught because he manipulated a narrative that got exposed to be a total lie.
There is that. But other than that, all right, Steve Sarkisian may not be lying, but he may not be very bright either. What did he have to say? And by the way, please join Hooker's Corner. You get increased recruiting info. You get also prizes that we'll be giving away and better connection with me and Caleb Calhoun. So, Caleb, go ahead and set this up. What did Steve Sarkisian say?
So, Steve Sarkisian, the Texas head coach, was in an interview with Joel Klatt, a sit-down yesterday. And he was asked a question about NIL in recruiting. And he said what I think annoys everybody nowadays who is a realistic person because everybody knows this is not true. And he's asking athletes to do something he himself wouldn't do. But also, he's not actually asking athletes to do this. But we'll get to that. But here's his response. It's a 30-second clip. I'm just going to show you what he said on Joel Klatt when asked about NIL. So let's just give the quick response real quick.
We've got an amazing product here. The history and tradition of Texas football is second to none. The education, the quality of education at UT is incredible. The coaching staff we have, the development of our players, the trajectory of what we've done from year 1 to year 2 to year 3 of our program, the city of Austin, all these things that we're talking about, that's why I want you to come to the University of Texas. NIL doesn't come up. That should be the last reason to choose to go to a school. Whether it's
the last reason to choose to go to a school. Now, before we get going, I just want to bring up this. This is a clip I'm showing you guys of Texas recruits.
Lambos. By the way, for those on the audio platforms, we're seeing Lamborghinis that are not only in front of the Texas facility, they're also parked to, just be displayed. And there's a Hummer. I mean, there's easily a couple of $1 million worth of cars here. Lambos are about $250,000. There's
that the athletes drive.
There's speakers. Let me finish painting the picture real quick. And then there's support staff with shakers as they come into the facility. So what Steve Sarkisian said,
and that's for recruits, by the way, that's for prospective recruits visiting.
Right. That was over a visit weekend. You're right. So what Steve Sarkisian said sounds incredibly hypocritical, Caleb.
It's a flat out lie. It's a flat out lie. NIL should be the last reason you come to Texas. Now let me show you all these Lambos that these players drive as you come through a parking lot. And like, what? Like, first of all, newsflash, and this is not a bad thing. Do you think Steve Sarkisian took the Texas job because Austin was so great and the university had this, or did he take the job because it was a great offer and they paid him a lot of money? Of course he did it because they paid him a lot of money.
Well, he didn't have a lot. I mean, I didn't think he had a lot of choices at the time after what went down at Southern Cal. But no, he went there because they paid him a lot of money.
Yes, nobody picks schools because no coach picks schools because they love the university and, all the academics and what we can sell you. Yet they're asking players to do that. And so one, I hate that already. But two, he's not recruiting players using NIL. Texas has one of the largest NIL collectors in the country.
It would be stupid for him not to use it. Now, can I defend Sark for a second?
No, you defend Sark because you're one of the people who still believes in him.
I do. I think he's a good coach. He had a problem and he overcame it.
He might have been drunk when he said that. Sorry.
I think that he's right. And this is where NIL is going. Post Nico, I don't think Tennessee's going to be doling out big time dollars for guys. Now, they're going to be doling out enough. I'll give you for instance. I stopped at a Chick-fil-A. I saw 4 players there. And
Chick-fil-A, oh my gosh. Now I'm just Jimmy Pruitt vibes.
Oh, I know. I didn't think about that. But they had enough money to go to Chick-fil-A. They didn't have to depend on the cafeteria or whatever. And I was like, man, I never used to see guys outside of campus. And it's probably because they got a little bit of money in their pocket. So everybody's going to get a base of, I've been told, around $60,000 to $80,000. Okay, the guys that you want. So they're going to be comfortable when they show up on campus. And then they better produce in a year or two. If they do, they'll get more money, the type of money that I think Sark's talking about. And if they don't, they might be shipped off because of the way coaches can just ship off players nowadays. So I think he's right. I think if a player decides to come to your school, and I think Tennessee had a baseball player that did that a couple of years ago, just because of money, you're not going to win a championship. So I'm buying this hook, line, and sinker. Call me naive and stupid if you like.
Yeah, when NFL teams sign free agents who chase the money, they never win Super Bowls when that happens. That never happens when you sign a free agent who went to you for the money when you open up the checkbook. That's just never happened, whatever, in the history of the NFL. I'm sorry, Dave. I disagree with you. Now, let me also say this.
I think do you think I'm in the minority with Sark being high on Sark, or do you think? I think it's probably 60-40. I'm in the majority, actually.
I think you might be. I'm not saying Sark doesn't know football. I'm just saying this is wildly hypocritical. One, again, Texas has one of the top 5 NIL collectives. With the 12th man having to shut down at Texas A&M, they're probably second only to Tennessee at this point in NIL collectives. Texas saying this when their collective is so large and they are buying talent, Dave, that's like, you ever hear sometimes these multimillionaires or billionaires on TV be like, you shouldn't go through life thinking about money. Well, that's easy for you to say, okay? Like, you're a multi-billionaire. So it's so annoying when one, you guys go through life thinking about money if you're a multi-billionaire. So don't tell me or Dave or anybody who's just trying to work a living to make a job, to make enough to enjoy life every day that we shouldn't think all about money. I hate when rich people say that. So, I mean, I despise it.
You and I are spending too much time together because I was thinking something along those lines this morning, as a matter of fact.
But Sarkisian saying that's Texas saying that.
But I'm not giving Sarkisian credit for saying that. I'm just giving him credit for being an average student. Because right now, if you haven't figured out the NIL plan that I just laid out, which is what it is, unless you're a first-year coach and you have to make a splash, that's going to be what it is. It's going to be you have an entry-level salary, then you can make more if you're a superstar. That's going to be the way it is.
Ways, Dave. You're speaking out of both sides of your mouth.
Well, no, how?
Because you have defended Lane Kiffin luring all the NIL talent possible to Ole Miss, and they've only gotten that talent through NIL, Lenny. It's not like they're like, I want to go play for Ole Miss.
I don't think they'll win a championship because of that. I think when times get tough, I think that's why you saw somebody go from Ole Miss to Ohio State. Man, I think that they don't have great team chemistry because they went there for money, and they won't win a championship. Whereas if Sark is being real, and he might be duplicitous, as you inferred, they should win a championship if they've got that type of team chemistry too, of guys that want to be at Texas because it's Texas and not just to get a little coin. I'm not saying it's not a factor. Sure, it's a factor, just like distance. But I think you would agree, for the right job, distance wouldn't make up your mind, and a little bit of coin wouldn't make up your mind. At least I don't think so.
My position on this is everything's case by case. I think overall you're right. If you build a team where your entire team is totally based on NIL, yeah, you're probably not going to win a championship. I think NIL can be the get you over the hump to get a player. And I think sometimes you can get a couple of players specifically for NIL. If I'm going to make an example, look, I called it the great equalizer for Tennessee football. Tennessee can never, all things being equal, Tennessee will never recruit on the level of Georgia, never recruit on the level of LSU, never recruit on the level of Alabama. They're just not in enough of a football hotbed area to recruit that level. NIL is their equalizer. So if you're talking about a kid out of Georgia that would have gone to Georgia, but Tennessee offers them a little more money because they have the NIL collective to do it, and they get that kid, I don't think that means that they're not going to play as hard for Tennessee, honestly. I just don't.
So you don't believe in the whole notion. So this goes back to NIL. I'm going to draw a parallel between when people used to say, you got to get those in-state kids because they play harder in the fourth quarter when they're playing Alabama. So did you believe that with in-state kids? Because if so, you had better believe that with a lot of the prospects that Josh Heupel's getting, because now Josh Heupel is getting guys that are taking less money to come to Tennessee. I can tell you that for a fact.
Peyton Manning wasn't an in-state kid, and he was probably the hardest working player Tennessee football ever had.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But I would like a base. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, but that's why it's all around case by case, and it goes all together. I mean, it's a confluence of factors. But I mean, I think that, again, Peyton Manning chose Tennessee. He didn't choose Tennessee. He chose it for a selfish reason. He chose it because he knew, it wasn't NIL, but indirectly it was, because didn't he choose Tennessee? Probably because he saw David Cutcliffe and said, that guy is going to get me ready for the NFL. Don't you think that's what he looked at?
Yeah, I do.
And that didn't stop him from working hard for Tennessee?
No, agreed. Sure would be something if David Cutcliffe thought that Gaston Moore was an incredible quarterback. You can join Hooker's Corner. You can get prizes, recruiting, and more. It'd be fascinating, wouldn't it? Just for $9.98, you're going to win prizes. You just do. Right now, the pool's kind of small, so you'll probably win prizes fairly quickly. And we really appreciate your support. It means a lot, but we want to make sure you get stuff. So this afternoon, we'll have an interview with Spencer Riley. He has a top flight prospect on his team out of Jeff County. You know who he is. We'll discuss him later today. That'll be on Hooker's Corner. Then we'll air that later in the week. So you'll get sneak previews. If you're a member of Hooker's Corner with the videos and more, you'll also get prizes, weekly prizes, t-shirts, books, and we will also hook you up with How About This, a monthly prize. And this month, it's the John Henderson helmet. So that's pretty awesome. Please join Hooker's Corner. We greatly appreciate your support. And we didn't want to do it on YouTube because they take like 60% or 80% of the money. And I don't want your money having to go to YouTube. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. A lot of Johns. Are you getting any sleep, Caleb, with your Quincy John?
Not as much as I would like, but last 2 days have been good. But I just said that tonight could be bad, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you're up the creek now. You're going to be watching like the My Pillow infomercials later tonight. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Have a fantastic day, afternoon, night, whenever you're watching. Everyone, we're with you weekdays at 10 a.m. for Caleb Calhoun. I'm